All right, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to SaberSim's DFS Office Hours. It is Friday, January 14th of 2022. Thank you for tuning into the stream here today. Apologize, a couple minutes late here, but we made it. If you were just tuning in, it was actually just on another stream here with the Run Pure team. So if you're watching both streams, if you doubled up with me here today, let me know. That's awesome. But we are here today. We've got a couple questions in the queue. We've got a cash game question. So not the biggest cash game player myself, but always happy to answer a couple cash game questions. A couple other questions here about lineup filters and so on. So not too many questions in the queue, all things considered, for a Friday here. If you've got questions for me, go ahead and get them into either YouTube chat or into the Office Hours channel in Slack, and we will get to everything here. Cody said that is a different view. Yeah, so we upgraded a little bit here yesterday. Got the new camera, upgraded the internet too, so hoping that the quality of the stream here is quite a bit better. Pretty excited about it. Now I need to do a computer upgrade here. Yesterday on stream, I was really kind of maxing out the CPU, the processor on my current computer. So now I've got my next upgrade that I need to do here to just make the stream as good as it can be. So, but anyway, we'll go ahead. We'll start getting into it here. I did see this other question here from Cody. What's the payout structure going to look like for the Max Challenge free roll? I think that was supposed to be, the details of that was supposed to be included in the email from Ross. If it wasn't, let me know. Or actually, I'll just circle back with Ross no matter what on that and make sure that gets out to everybody. We've got a pretty good little payout structure set up for that. Not too overly top heavy. We didn't want to create, some garbage contest like, a lot of the free rolls that the sites actually offer themselves are like horribly top heavy. So we didn't want to do anything like that. But I'll chat with Ross here and make sure that everybody knows and gets that out to everybody. So, but looks like JT's got it here. 2K to first, 1,000 second. That's the DraftKings one. The DraftKings is a $5,000 prize pool total, and the FanDuel one is a $1,000 prize pool. So if you have the DraftKings one, you can just divide it by 5, all of the prizes by 5, and that's how it works out. But cool. Let's get going here. Let's start answering some questions. So I'm gonna go ahead and get us started with a question from AJ here. This is that cash game. And let's see. Let's get this going. All right. Long question here. He said, hey, Jordan, have a question about cash games. No, they're probably not as popular as GPPs anymore. Started playing them each night this week. So far, 8-1 overall, 7-0 my last 7. So SaberSim seems to work good with me with them. Find them a nice way to help offset losses if you're having a bad GBP night. Anyway, my question is, if I'm playing multiple cash games, for example, let's say I enter 5 head-to-heads, do you think it's a smarter strategy, assuming my process is sound, to play my most optimal lineup in all 5? Or do you think it's better to take the top 5 of a build and enter them uniquely? I know with GBPs, the more lineups, the better, but does this also apply to cash games? Or should I live and die with my most optimal play? So far, I've been doing different lineups, but I've also not played more than 2 cash contests per slate. So if I increase that, what would be your advice be? Congrats, by the way, finishing 7th in the piggy bank last night. I didn't even know I did that, actually. So thank you. I guess I'll have to go check that. I thought I was sunk. My night was off to a really bad start, like all night. I didn't know I had it. Like it was even in the same ballpark as like having a good finish last night. So now I got to go check and see how that ended up working out. But anyway, cash game question here. So I think what the optimal thing to do is to just build one lineup and enter it in all your cash game contests, right? So the whole point of playing, a couple of points of playing a lot of different lineups in GPPs is to diversify, right? To make sure that you are not all in on a single lineup. In cash games, especially if you're mixing in head-to-heads, you get a lot of that diversification based on the opponents that you're playing. Since you're just playing that same cash lineup, if you play that same cash lineup against 100 different opponents, right, you're going to theoretically kind of have a big spread of different lineups you are playing against. And since if you just beat that individual lineup in the head-to-head, you win your money back, you can kind of diversify that way. So if you have a lineup that is a 70th percentile performing lineup overall that night, you're going to win about 70% of your head-to-heads. But if you start mixing in other lineups in there, the other problem with this, the reason why I don't like to mix another lineup in there when I'm playing cash in, is it's a lot easier in cash to kind of identify what the best overall lineup is. Because we're just trying to get a lineup that has a top 55th percentile outcome. That is 99% of the time just the highest projected lineup you can play. There are sometimes some considerations about ownership or late swap flexibility or things like that, but I would say the vast majority of the time, the best thing you can do in cash games is just play the highest projected overall lineup. In GPPs, it's not only do you want to diversify in GPPs, right? But it's also way harder to identify what is the best overall lineup you can play. That's much harder question to answer. Sorry. So that's another reason why I think in GPPs, it makes more sense to diversify. But if you're playing cash games, I would say 99% of the slates just makes far more sense to just build your cash lineup, build the best lineup you can, and enter that into everything. I do have some cash content up here on our YouTube channel. Let's go ahead and get this pulled up. We do a cash video for both NFL and NBA. Those are probably the only two sports where I would ever even think about playing cash games. And I don't even know if I don't, full disclosure, I'm not playing cash. I don't even know if I would really be interested in doing it in NBA. In NFL, I think there's definitely an argument for it, but either way, we do have a video up for both of these sports about how we would tackle NBA cash games, NFL cash games. A ton of the content in these videos is contest selection. I think that always surprises people. People come on and they say, what settings should I use for my cash lineup build? What players should I use? What kind of lineup constructions? These videos are 95% contest selection because the biggest edge in cash games is finding the softest opponents to play. So anyway, let's keep it going. All right. We got some other questions here. I'm going to hit these ones from YouTube chat here. Joseph, is there a way to filter lineup pool with two parameters? I would like to sort the lowest owned lineups via SaberScore, if that makes sense. Currently, I have to scroll a bunch to find some contrarian lineups with decent Saber scores. For example, for the 100% owned lineups, these would be organized according to SaberScore, and the next set would be the 101% owned lineups, 102%, etc. Feel me, or is this a multiple is this type of multiple filters in future plans? I get exactly what you're saying. This is you can't. The unfortunate reality is there's not an easy way to do this right now in the app beyond what you're doing. I have, frankly, this is the first time I've heard of somebody trying to do this. I totally get what your approach is here. It makes a lot of sense to me. It's not currently in the future plans because I think this is literally the first time I've heard about somebody doing this. But it makes sense. I'll note it and mention it and bring it back to the team. I think it's a cool idea. I mean, the one thing I would say here is, okay, actually, let me say this. So one thing that is in the plan, and this might kind of streamline what you're trying to do here, is having the ability to just make bulk changes to your pool based on projection, ownership, salary, etc., all here at the end. So you could say, for example, show me the top overall projected SaberScore lineups, but don't give me anything with a combined total ownership over 120%. Right? So just remove every lineup that has over 125% total ownership and give me the best SaberScore lineups. That is something that is in our plans. To be fully transparent, that's not something that is actively being worked on right at the moment. We have some other priorities we want to push out first. But I think that would probably kind of accomplish what you were trying to do here. It's not exactly the same process you're using, but it would probably work. I mean, the goal here, I think, is to add a filter to basically do anything. So the other approach is you could basically say sort by ownership, show me the lowest overall owned lineups in the pool, and then axe any lineup that isn't at least a SaberScore of 90, for example. Right? That's kind of another thing we've talked about. Like, well, not another thing. That'd be another way of using the same thing. So that is something that's kind of on the roadmap here for us. Yeah, Joseph says that would work exactly what I'm getting at. Cool. Yeah. So that is something that's kind of in our I don't know. It's in our roadmap. Couple other things that we have some improvements to the entry editor and the late swap tool that we've really been wanting to get out for a while now. That's a little bit higher priority. And we want to work on kind of I would say a very simple player groups kind of functionality first. Those are kind of two things that I know for a fact are at least a little bit higher priority there, but this is a good one it's on the list to add more control to this kind of thing. So Wesley said, hey, Jordan, been away for a while, but I'm back. Welcome back, man. In NBA DFS, if you're in a time crunch with not a lot of time to do your own projections and exposure, what's the best strategy? Honest answer is just run the lineups, don't touch a thing, and make sure you have the ability to late swap. In fact, that actually is my strategy on a lot of these different slates, right? I think NBA, because of how often news, this is kind of the trifecta of NBA late swap, right? How often news breaks, how impactful it is. Actually, there's 4. How often news breaks, how impactful it is to the projections and the optimal strategy when news breaks, how many different times in a given slate you have the opportunity to late swap, and how little the field late swaps and late swaps correctly means that I think the vast majority of your edge in NBA DFS is just purely late swapping. So if you told me you've only got 15 minutes before lock and it's the first time you've looked at the slate all day, I'd say great, actually. Now I'm happy you didn't bias yourself by looking at all the news that came out earlier in the day, right? Build your lineups, make sure you have the ability to late swap and late swap throughout the day. That's what I would, or late swap throughout the slate. That's what I would do. I wouldn't even sweat what you're doing with the projections and exposures 15 minutes before the slate. Make sure you have the flexibility to swap when news is breaking throughout the slate that half the field's not even going to bother looking at. That's what I would do. So JL said, hello, if I'm playing a GPP with 50 max entries in FanDuel, what settings should I use if there are only 20 and 150 max options? Just pick something in between. It's the easiest thing to do. Typically the 20 max and 150 max sliders are going to be pretty close to each other anyway. Most of the time you just end up tweaking the sim variance a little bit. So let's say it's 10 to 50K entrance, right? Let's turn manual mode on here. Your 20 max is 236. Your 150 max is 238. So I'd throw this thing at sim variance 7 and call it a day. Good to go. HC said, hey, Jordan and guys, happy Friday. I need that SaberSim shirt in my life. This SaberSim shirt is a 10K top 5 finish along with wearing the SaberSim avatar away from being in your life. It's definitely a comfy hoodie here. And it really pops with the new camera too. That SaberSim logo is looking good there. So, all right, cool. Slim Shady, I just became a new member of SaberSim. Welcome, man. I have tons of questions, seeing how I play all types of sports. So just want to say thanks for all the good content. Still trying to hone in how to use the sim. Awesome. Yeah, welcome. We're happy to have you. I would say, you're just getting started. Definitely get familiar. Hey, there I am. Get familiar with this YouTube page. We put a ton of work into all of our courses we have here for different sports. So when a new sport starts, it's kind of a pretty big week for us. Pretty big couple weeks. We push out a ton of content about a whole bunch of different kinds of topics. And I've got these organized here in like a course that you can kind of walk through and watch from step to step. So if you're playing NBA, right, this first video is about contest selection. This is a great video to check out. Second video is about beating GPPs in general. Then we got a late swap video. Then maybe you get to the cash video and you're like, you know what, I'm not going to play cash. I'll skip that, right? You can kind of make the course work for you. But that's a great way to get up to speed with how to get started here. So, biggest thing I would say overall is, SaberSim is a lot different than what else is out there. It's really kind of the only tool that is designed to actually build GPP lineups. You can build cash lineups, but it's designed to build GPP winning lineups out of the box without having to have to set a bunch of rules about how to get correlation and how to deal with ownership well and how to deal with wide ranges of outcomes of players. All of that stuff is built in naturally because of the way that we simulate these games. So if you're coming from another tool, right, probably the biggest thing that you're going to have to adjust to that will feel a little bit new is you don't have to spend hours going in here and dialing in a bunch of settings before you build lineups. You're probably going to get pretty good lineups without touching a thing. You can add a lot of value by tweaking projections and ownership here on step 1, or tweaking your exposures on step 3 and adjusting your lineups there after you've built the lineups. But if you're coming from FC or Roto Grinders or Labs or anything like that, you have to do way less here than you're probably used to get effective lineups. So Paris said, what's up, Jordan? I have no projections. All I do is find LeBron, go to his projection and move it up. Then I do the same thing for the next player. That's not good. Any suggestions? Why don't you have any projections? You should have. I I don't really understand. Maybe you can give me a little bit more information here on what's going on. But if you're a SaberSim subscriber, you should have the SaberSim projections. Nothing wrong with bumping up the projection on LeBron if you want more of him in your lineups, but I'm a little confused on what you mean by you have no projections. I'm confused. So maybe let me know a little bit more what you mean here. But getting more hair compliments today. Thanks, Joseph. It really it looks nice in the new camera for sure. I've been having it down a little bit more just because it's looking good. So Rob's got some questions here in Slack. Let's get to these here. And Paris, I'm sorry, again, let me know if you can give me a little bit more information on what you mean by not having projections there. I'd be happy to come back to your question there. Just a little confused on that one. So, but Rob said, my NBA process involves uploading. All right, this is going to be a fun one. Uploading SaberSim projections and builds into my web server where I make my edits and do my research, then re-upload to SaberSim. I am interested to hear if you have any suggestions on how to utilize the 1,500 lineup research builds you've mentioned. I'm thinking a process where I upload the research build to my server and eventually upload my actual builds when I begin building lineups. Let's assume that the actual build is 20 lineups. I can then cross-reference the research build with my actual build to determine if I'm over or under leveraged in the correct places. I also believe this process can make it possible to utilize the research builds that are run 10 minutes before lock with the most updated projections as opposed to running it early in the day and referencing outdated projections during lineup buildings. I don't have a specific questions, but I'd like to hear what you think about something like that. And specifically, if you have any ideas about what you would look for when you cross-reference the two or more builds besides the obvious comparison of leverage between the two builds. Wow, that's okay. Lot to unpack here. First of all, sounds pretty cool what you're doing. Sounds like you've got a pretty good read on this here in general. Without knowing the intricacies of everything that you're doing here, I would say in a very general sense that this seems like a pretty good approach. I'll leave you with this. I have historically experimented with something that sounds similar that I used to do in Excel. And what I would do is I would take the research build. I would run the 1,500 lineup research build. I would download it to Excel. I would back out the exposures by using like a count if function and basically refigure out what the exposures were and kind of recalculate the leverage that way for each individual player. Then I would run my actual build. I would download all of those lineups. I would put those in Excel and I would figure out. I experimented with a lot of different ways of figuring out exactly the way I wanted to organize this, but I would basically kind of figure out what the total leverage was of a lineup and identify what are the overall best performing lineups, right? What are the highest leverage lineups? I did that for a long time. I did that to some mixed success last year in baseball season. I was never entirely confident that I was actually beating out a similar method of just doing this a little more intuitively in a just a actual build in SaberSim. So I stopped. I think it's an interesting idea. I think it's definitely a lot of fun to go down that route and kind of put this together and kind of try to fully automate this process. But ultimately for me, I found that it was just far easier to just do all this in the app. And rather than try to like calculate programmatically what the best lineups were, to just use more of an intuitive approach of just saying like, these are the lineups I want to roll with. I think your adjustments, I think what you are doing here, again, with the information I have from this question, sounds pretty sharp. And it sounds like something similar that I have done before. So hopefully that helps. I know that's not incredibly detailed, but with the information I have here, that's kind of what I think here. So, all right. And then question number 2 from Rob here. I see a bunch of questions in YouTube chat. As always, I assure you guys we will get to everything. So just be patient with me here. This is the last question in Slack. And he said, I've played with the idea of weighting SaberSim's projections against other projection sources such as Osimo. After removing outliers, one player projected starter on SaberSim, but not on Osimo. Extreme min projection differences. I take something like SaberSim. So, okay, 80% SaberSim, 20% Osimo is a way of slightly bumping / dropping guys. Have you ever heard of anyone being successful with a system like this? Are there any cons to doing this that I might be overlooking? Okay. So yeah, there's plenty of people do this. This is aggregates, right? Well, there's definitely something people do. Okay, I'll say this. The benefit that you get of doing this ever is that you get the aspect of kind of the wisdom of the crowd, right? As long as you're going to reputable sources, combining information from more points of view probably gets you a little bit more close, right? Or at least tones down outlier type situations. That's probably the biggest advantage of it, right? Does this add value? I think it's minimal. I really do. I've done this a little bit in the past. I think it's a minimal value add. I really think it's a lot of busy work. I don't think it actually does that much in terms of making better lineups coming out on the other side. In fact, I think one of the things, I don't think there's a big con to doing this other than the time it takes to do it. I think the biggest con is that it takes time. I think secondarily, I think it exposes you to a position where you could potentially make a mistake, right? This is kind of increasing the complexity of your process a lot. And thirdly, I think it may make you just a little bit chalkier, right? If you're taking that wisdom of the crowd kind of approach, you're going to move in the direction that the field on average is going to move. So I certainly don't think there's anything wrong with this. I don't know how much value it actually adds long-term. I would also say that for NBA in particular, we have done some back tests after our most recent updates to the sims that we've been making throughout the season. And we feel very confidently that we have the best NBA projection model available at the moment. I think you may be potentially degrading the quality of the projections by running some kind of weighted average like this, given how high quality the sims are at the moment. So, but certainly nothing wrong with this. Like broadly speaking, there's nothing wrong with this. I don't know how much value it adds. And I'm never going to come on here and tell anybody that this is the right way to do this. Right. That's not the answer you're going to get from me coming on like the SaberSim stream. Right. So, but anyway. Okay, cool. Let's hit some of these questions that are coming in YouTube chat here. Get caught up. Okay. JT said he asked a question about late swap last night in the support channel. Let's see. Oh, I see. Okay. Let's see. Here's the question. This came in. So this is from JT in support. He said, when late swapping, if I late swap all 72 lines, will it treat that like a pool of 72, or will it single out my 20 max single entry? I'm trying to avoid screwing my higher entry with my low dollar entries, if that makes sense. Okay. I think I get what you're asking here. So let's say you have like a main lineup that's going into all of your single entries, right? So it's one lineup, but it's in 10 different entries. We won't ununiquify that, we won't like uniquify that lineup, right? We won't swap it 10 different times and suddenly you have 10 different lineups in all your single entries. Each individual unique lineup will only get late swapped once, and that will be applied to all of the entries that lineup is in. So like for me, I use rank fill pretty often right now. At least that's what I've been doing lately. So my top overall lineup is going into my single entries. It's going into every single contest. That lineup, when late swapped, only gets swapped once, and it becomes one new lineup that gets applied to all the entries that lineup is in. Is that what you were asking here? I think that's what you're asking. Let me know if that helps, if that covers what you're going at here. I might maybe have answered that the wrong way, but I think that covers the question. So let me know. Okay, cool. Let's see. Ryan says Yahoo NBA run good has been insane. That's awesome. Yeah, I've been grinding Yahoo NBA. Well, I've been grinding Yahoo when there are rake-free contests. Because I think they're insane. Like it's nuts. So I'm playing Yahoo Golf this week, and I have like way too much Sungjae in my lineup, so it looks kind of bad, unfortunately. But yeah, I I cannot say enough how much it makes sense to be playing the rake-free contest on Yahoo. Also, like here, since somebody's given me an opportunity to talk about Yahoo. If you're playing NFL this weekend, you got to check this out because these contests are insane, right? So here's what I was doing earlier. NFL, right? And then go up here and then search no management fee. And look at this, right? Saturday slate, no management fee. Look, you can already see I'm entered, right? Saturday slate, no management fee. Sunday slate, no management fee. Wild card, Bills versus Patriots game, I think. Yep, no management fee, entered. This one is Chiefs Steelers, no management fee, entered. I also entered all these site credit ones because it's basically like paying back your entry fee again. No management fee, right? Look at all these. These are rake free. There's a ton of these. You just keep going. These are so soft. They are so soft. Like I have just been killing these. So highly, highly recommend checking those out. Now you got to play against me. So maybe not so soft, right? But if you're okay taking second place in this for, what is it? What's the payout structure in here? So if you're okay with second for $5,000, it's a good contest to play, right? No management fee. Because I'm already entered in this, so I'll probably take first. But if you're okay with second, it's a pretty good deal to play these. But they're so good. Paris said, is it okay to just bump up projections once for two different players to be able to... Oh, I understand now. Okay, I get it. So this is a DraftKings thing about not being able to see the lineups. Yes, just making... This is fine. So you build your lineups, right? Here, I think this build will work. You build your lineups and you see you have to make two different changes to your lineups to see them. Like, okay, is it okay to just do this? Yes, that's fine. DraftKings told us that's fine. That's why it works. What we really want for people to do is to like actually kind of make two impactful changes. But yes, it's perfectly fine to do that. And there are slates where I do that too. I would say, you're going to diversify yourself. You're going to do something that is unique to you. If you do something that is a little bit more impactful, right? Either in a adjustment to exposure or projection, but it's fine, especially if you're in a pinch or just want to run a test build and see how things are looking to just make those two adjustments to projections there. So Ron says, Jordan, I'm sick. Reviewing my process, if I had done unique instead of ranking my lineups last night, I would have gotten top 3 in the end, one off one of them, understood the risk, so it's still okay. Yeah, man, that happens. That is unfortunately the way it goes. The other version of this is, Ron, I'm sick. I filled my lineups uniquely, and my highest scoring lineup binked the quarter jukebox and would have won 100K in the fadeaway, right? That's the other version of this. So you're damned if you do, damned if you don't, a little bit, but sacrifices on either side, really. So, but Craig said, joining the stream late, watch the Run Pure stream, good stuff, trying to catch up at 1.5 stream. All right. I was wondering if anybody doubled up with me here. So awesome. JL said, would there be an update to the FanDuel pages to show actuals like the DK page, or is that already there for FanDuel? It should be for both. I know we have had a little bit of trouble with our provider sometimes in the past on getting the actuals for FanDuel up, but they should be there for both. Let's see. Do we have yesterday's? We do. So it is there. So JT said I use a different line in each of my single entries. Okay, so did I misunderstand your question then? I might have. Maybe I did. If you can maybe give me a little bit more context on like what you're trying to ask here. The only other way I interpreted this was like, do you need to swap your single entry and 20 max separately to get different sliders in there? And for me, I just swap everything together. Like I live with the idea that my sliders are not going to be perfectly optimized for every contest that I'm playing, to get the advantage of only having to late swap once and also making sure that all of my lineups are unique, right? That's what I do. You can swap your lineups separately if you want to, but I don't think it's worth the trouble. personally. So 12S Mitchell said, how do you determine two locks using value and leverage? So one thing on this, you don't have to lock two players. Every time this question comes in, or not this exact question, but every time somebody asks about like my two locks, I think there's a point of confusion of thinking that DraftKings message is saying you must lock two players in. And in fact, we would actually recommend probably not locking two players in unless you want to play really aggressively, right? Locking two players is a pretty aggressive stand. What you need to do is you need to make two adjustments to projections or exposure or ownership to two different players, either before the build or you can do it after the build. You don't have to do it all together. So like you can do this after the build too. In terms of where you get that information, I think there's a couple different ways. I mean, it can come from a lot of different places. You could be doing your own individual research, and maybe ownership projections are looking a little wonky at this particular point in the day. So I think those maybe need a little bit of time to settle in. But maybe you're looking at a guy like Cole Anthony, and you want to make sure in your research that you've got him in half of your lineups, and maybe you want to be a little bit more on the fade side of Embiid, right? So maybe you bring him down a little bit. Right, those could be your two edits. So, I mean, in terms of like, how do I determine what the best thing to do is? There's a lot there. That's where kind of the strategy of the game starts to come in, right? I talk all the time about my research build process of how I handle this. You could do your own research online, looking for other takes out there. You can go with your gut a little bit here too, right? I think that's fine. We know that these lineups are viable for the contest. It's fine to have a little bit of a gut call here. So, okay. JL said, I guess they weren't being updated real time like the DK page. Yeah, it's possible. I think in general, the FanDuel actuals take a little bit longer to come in than the DK ones there. So J115 says, could 0 be allowed in min uniques in a 0-0-10 build, assuming the same optimal lineup might be returned by optimal sims, but min uniques equals 1 only lets that optimal lineup be included once. Yeah, I get that. That's kind of a technicality. I think the rate at which that actually happens is probably so low that the difference that would make in the actual exposures you get are far within the range of outcomes, or like they're in the error bars of just the variance of the build. Right? Like the variance that you're getting of picking 1,500 sims out from a set of thousands is far greater than the actual variance of the fact that a single lineup might have been optimal for multiple given sets of different sims. On Showdown, maybe there's a stronger argument here. Frankly, I don't think this is ever something that we're going to be able to do, because having 0 as a min uniques option is just going to create chaos. Like, we wouldn't actually ever want anybody to do that when you're actually building real lineups, and just having it there as an option is going to create chaos, even for a 0-0-10 build, right? Like, there are situations where somebody might be using a 0-0-10 build to build their real lineups, and if we give them 0 as a min uniques option, then people are going to pick it, and then they're going to be like, why do I have dupes? I think it's just going to be a little bit of a mess. I would say this process naturally carries with it a little bit of uncertainty and a little bit of variance, and I think this is something that we probably just have to live with being a part of that, to be completely honest, because it's a good point, especially I think for Showdown. I will say this: when your sim variance is at 10 for any build, we will never reuse the same sim for a given game, ever. So theoretically, the same sim, if your sim variance is at 9 and we're bucketing sims instead, you could theoretically pull the same Warriors and Bulls game simulation into the bucket of sims for 2 different lineups. But if you're using sim variance 10, whether for a research build or for your actual lineup, once a sim is used in a build for a lineup, it will never be used again in that build. So I think that is a little bit encouraging. That helps a little bit, but I get what you're asking here. I wouldn't stress too much about it, because I think the impact of this is very, very minor. So Wesley said, going off what Ron stated, if you have a mix of say 180 lineups and 150 max, 20 max, 3 max, single entry, would you just build one set of lineups, and when you do fill, set them to unique or rank? It's up to you. If you use unique, you are going to smooth out your variance. You are going to give yourself a greater raw probability of having a high scoring lineup, and you are likely to realize some of your expected value sooner because you're playing more lineups every night. However, you are leaving it up to pure chance what contest that lineup potentially ends up in. So that lineup might be ending up in your 150 max piggy bank on FanDuel to win you a cool 300, 500 bucks or something. Whereas if it had ended up in your $10 single entry, it'd win you $5,000 or something like that. And that's pure luck where it ended up. If you fill with rank, you are going to increase the variance, right, of your lineups. You are also going to increase the raw upside because that top overall scoring lineup is going to be in everything. So if your top overall Saber scoring lineup shows up in your top single entry, it's going to take everything down, right? So it's a little bit up to you. Our official recommendations is to play a unique lineup in every contest because we want our users to have the opportunity to take something down sooner rather than saying, oh, I wish my best lineup wasn't in the quarter jukebox and instead was in the main GPP that night, right? Like everybody wishes that, but we want to give people a chance to win and realize their expected value sooner. So our official recommendation is to fill uniquely, but there's nothing wrong with filling by rank. You just should understand that what you are doing is you are decreasing your raw probability of having a top scoring lineup on that particular slate. You are increasing your variance over the long term, but you are maximizing your ROI. So Robert says, I tend to just take 2 players that are out and projected 0 points and then bump them down -1. So I know my changes won't affect anything. Yeah, that's probably the most certain way of making a no impact change to your projections. I think it's fine. Don't be afraid to take a shot though, right? You don't be, I would say don't be afraid to take a shot. But Don says, when you modify exposures and projections, could they possibly neutralize each other? Yeah, potentially, right? We could even just show an exact example of that, right? Let's say, okay, so we have a 20 max build here, right? And we're getting 65% Joel Embiid. If we changed his projection to 70, right? He's going to start showing up in... Wow, does he really not show up in more lineups when his projection changes to 70? What? Oh, it's because I'm sorting by ownership. I was like, how is this possible? Okay. Okay. Where is Embiid? What is going on here? Oh, these are now, okay. These are now the lowest Saber scoring lineups. So, okay, now we're good. Highest Saber scoring lineups. Okay, so there's Embiid. So, yeah, we bumped his projection up. I know 100 looks goofy there, but yes, you could theoretically neutralize the two by literally just, we are getting 65% before. We're still getting 65. We've neutralized the impact of the projection. So, but I think the more likely outcome, what this is more likely to actually look like is you could be looking at a particular player and be like, this projection feels kind of high, right? So you bring this down. This is just an example, right? I'm not making an actual stance on ball tonight, but maybe you say that projection looks high. So you bring that down, right? Well, let's say you bring this down. Let's do a little bit more extreme. And then maybe now you say, okay, but now this looks too low. So now maybe you come back and put this back to 30, right? That would be kind of an example of yes, in some ways these are moving in opposite directions, but they're still giving me the result I want. So, this is wacky. When did balls start costing? Is this the first slate that he's been under 9K since the start of the season? I was like, why is like this projection actually doesn't look that bad? Why am I getting so much ball? But if he's 9K, that is crazy. He's 2,000 less than Luka. That's wild. I think he'll probably be pretty popular tonight. Let's see. Michael's got something for me. A quote. Safe haven. Applies to bankroll management and also for DFS. Take care of the losses. The profits will then take care of themselves. Profits matter only relative to the losses. Stay in the game by protecting your capital base, your means of playing the game. Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of parallels between investments and DFS. There are a lot. So Jack said, hi, Jordan. I ran a, well, first of all, thanks for sharing, Michael. That was great. Hi, Jordan. I ran a 0-0-10 research build and looked at the top scoring lineup. I ran another build 1 minute later. Everything was still the same. And the top scoring lineup numbers were totally different. No sims were ran. Is this normal? Yeah, it's perfectly normal. The reason why you're getting that is because your variance is so high, right? You're getting such a high scoring variance. Every single lineup is built from an individual set of sims for like a single game simulation of every game on the slate. So you're going to get a different lineup at the top pretty much every single time. You could do this forever in that top scoring lineup. The lineup that's showing up at the top is in a research build is the total raw highest scoring lineup from the set of sims that were used to build that lineup. Is the raw actual highest scoring. So it's always going to be different. It's virtually always going to be different. And this is one of the things I mentioned before that, there is a lot of natural variance in a research build. And the way we counteract that is by looking at as many lineups as possible, right? So the reason why I run a research build always with 1,500 lineups is because it counteracts the raw natural variance of the sim selection process here. Looking at 10 lineups through this process would be meaningless. Looking at 100 probably means very little. Looking at 500, you're getting closer. At 1,500, I think you at least start to be able to draw some conclusions from this. But you have to look at the whole pool of 1,500 as a whole. If you start looking at individual lineups, you're going to go down a bad path. You got to look at the whole set. So, it goes without saying here, this is an advanced strategy that you can, because of the nature of what we have to do here, only actually do on the DFS advanced plan. If you have the DFS starter plan, frankly, you can't really do this in a way that is effective because you can only see 20 lineups at a time. I think your time would be better spent doing some kind of more traditional research, reading some content, watching some other videos, trying to make some adjustments to projections and ownerships rather than going down this particular direction because you can't see the entire pool. So JL says, why can't we have more than 1,500 lineups? We've talked about potentially making short answer, it becomes disproportionately and exponentially more tech intensive to build more. So it's not linear. It's not as if the technical requirements to build 3,000 lineups is twice as much as 1,500 lineups. It's like an exponential curve, and the more lineups one person builds, the more the weight on our entire databases and servers goes up. Also, people that are building 5,000 lineups, for example, often are not building 5,000 lineups to just use as their build that they tweak exposures and do with in a certain way that like they are doing something similar to this, and they're probably doing a lot of it. So we have talked about expanding or increasing the limit of how big you can make a pool size, but it would probably come in the form of a higher tier of membership. That would frankly, you would pay more for the membership for the ability to run these builds that were probably a little bit outside the typical pipeline of what the average user is doing, and also a little bit more technically intensive on our servers and databases and things like that. That's why. That's the way it's currently set up. So, but Cody says, of course I would want that. I'd be a millionaire if I entered that mini max lineup into the milli. Yep, that's the way it goes. Brady versus Alex Picks is back here today. I touched on this yesterday. This isn't a tout show. I don't have thoughts about the NFL slate above and beyond what I am seeing when I run my research builds, what I'm seeing when I run my test builds. I would be happy to run those builds and talk through what I'm kind of seeing if you would like, or if anybody would like. The reason why I typically don't come on here and do that is because anybody with a SaberSim membership can do that. That's also why we don't do a lot of the tout type content on our end personally, is because, a lot of that stuff would just come directly from our model, and that you can see that information here for yourself. So if you have any questions about the slate, or want me to break anything down here, or have more questions about broad NFL strategy or how to use SaberSim, I'm happy to talk about this, but I will probably never really have a good answer for you in terms of NFL thoughts on the slate. I'm pretty transparent with my process. If you want to see how I actually handle an NFL slate, I'd just go watch this video. This one, I do something resembling this every single time I play NFL. So, all right. What else we have? Let's see. Rob had responded to me back. He said, I have the system automated, so there's minimal time in actually waiting the projections and re-uploading, but I agree Saber's projections seem to be the best, so waiting them may be counterintuitive. Appreciate the responses. Yeah, well, that knocks out one of the cons that I had mentioned if this is somewhat automated for you, but cool. Cool. I don't see any other questions. Did I miss anything? Anybody else have any other questions for me? I think I've done a pretty good job here getting to everything. Good stream today. A lot of different conversations here. A lot of different topics. All kinds of different stuff. Ryan says, can't wait to get the CSGO sweats back. Yeah, maybe this season I really need to dive in a little bit more. I need to get my esports grind going. JL said you're awesome. Appreciate that, man. It's kind of you. But Ryan talking about esports here. Yeah, I need to get my esports sweats going. I think one of the problems, and actually, okay, so tonight's a real slate. So maybe I'll play tonight. That'd be kind of fun. If there's still contests that are open. Or did this already? Let's see. Did this start already? The overnight slates just kind of kill me. I just can't live with the knowing that I'm gonna go to bed and the slate's gonna start overnight without any chance to make an adjustment if something happens. It's so hard for me to do that. Even though I end up doing that a lot during the golf season anyway, it feels different with League. Oh no, this hasn't started yet. Maybe I'll play something here. Oh, a lot of stuff's not even full. Yeah, maybe I will. Maybe I'll play a little League. So, but anyway, CS:GO too. Yeah, I wanna dive in a little bit more. So, Craig said you can use unique on those contests and then select your single entry /3 max contests and fill by rank if you want to ensure that you get your best lineups in those contests. I am a little. Oh, Craig said, I started late, so still 8 minutes behind. I saw your question about unique fill. Yeah, so you can, okay, so broadly speaking, you can kind of finagle your lineup sets to create a set of lineups and then fill that set of lineups specifically only into a certain number of contests. The reality is, though, is that while Saber score or projected score is a way of estimating what the highest expected value lineup is going to be, it is never, ever, ever, I can safely say it's never going to happen that your actual scoring lineups are going to be in the exact order of Saber score or projected score. So at some point, you're going to have the frustration of saying, my highest scoring lineup was not in the best possible contest it could be. In fact, that's probably going to happen most nights. But yes, you can create these different lineup sets in a given build, name them and fill them specifically to get certain lineups in the right contests. But you are ultimately going to be subject to the same variance one way or the other. So, but let's see. Someone sent me a message here. JT said, thanks for the reply. I was kind of wondering if it would be better to late swap separately if time allows, especially when entries are from 25 cents to $100. It can. If you have that much variance in your entry fees, I think it can make a difference. I still don't know if I would actually go through the trouble of late swapping them separately. Because I just don't know that I would. I really don't. I don't know. I think like the difference in sliders is not going to make such a huge difference. At that point, when you're late swapping anyway, I would probably just lean on using a little bit lower sliders anyway, because most people, like, you're going to have these plays that open up that are great value plays that are low owned, that the field's not going to properly swap onto anyway. So turn down the impact of variance, turn down the impact of ownership fade, and just rock and roll. And then know that you only have to do it once, and you're doing it for a unique line. You're getting a unique lineup in every single entry. At least you're maintaining that unique. You're maintaining whatever the construction of unique lineups are you already have, I guess. And it's just so much easier. I think even if I was, I think there's probably some theoretical limit where I would say, like, okay, at this point, I'm going to late swap these separately. But I would probably be pretty high. And like, even if I was playing high stakes single entries along with some like the mini max or something like that, I think I'd still swap them all together. And when you're doing the late swap, just lean more on the side of lowering your sliders rather than having higher sliders. So like if you have a lot of high stakes single entry and stuff in there, right? So like you're playing an even mix, right? And you're playing some single entry, like swap here, right? Something kind of in between, and swap everything together. That's what I would do. But if you have time and you want to swap them separately, go for it. I don't think I have that in me to do, like, how many swaps do we have tonight? We have what? 1, 2, 3, 4 late swap windows. Maybe if you broke it into 2 different late swaps, maybe you can get away with it. But man, it's gonna wear you down. It would wear me down. NBA is a grind enough, so I don't know. But Wesley said, when late swapping, do you have to refresh the projections? So they should, when you go to the entry editor. If I had an actual entries file in here, actually I can just put it in here. Every time you go to the entry editor, you will see that this little thing will spin. So you see it spinning. We do that automatically so that we refresh your projections for you, so that you don't accidentally not have the most up-to-date projections when you go in here and do this. So we'll do that for you and update. So that happens automatically, but it is, I think, good practice here to go back to step 1 and make sure that, everything looks right? Make sure that the timestamp up here is like recent, right? In this case, that's 2 minutes ago. So that looks pretty good. The other thing to watch out for is like, we will never overwrite your own custom projection. So we had an example earlier on the stream I was on before this, right? Maybe you had set a custom projection of Chris Boucher to, I think it's Boucher, actually. I'm realizing now, maybe it is just Boucher, but I've always said Boucher, right? Maybe you set his projection to 18, but then later tonight, we get news that Siakam's sitting. So this projection here has become like 30. We won't overwrite 18 here because you gave it to us as a custom projection. So you should always go and double check your custom projections and make sure that you're allowing them to update when news breaks, because we will not overwrite a custom projection. So, but Josh had Steven Adams in. How's the slate looking? Kind of messy, huh? Kind of messy. We'll see how everything shakes out here. But how's the value looking on this slate too? It's kind of always the two things I look at. Not a ton, to be honest. So far, a bit of an interesting slate. I mean, this is good value, right? There's good value out here, but we don't have those like 8x, 9x, 10x projections yet. We'll see. So, but all right. I don't see any other questions coming in here. Thank you, everybody that tuned in and hung out with me here for the past hour. Appreciate everybody that asked questions. And, of course, to everybody that watches this show after. Always want to say thank you to everybody that watches the recording here up. So it is Friday, heading into the weekend. A fun weekend of DFS for sure. I just entered into my NFL contest today. Very, very excited for this weekend. But good luck in your contest tonight. Good luck in any DFS you are playing this weekend. Have a good weekend. We will, of course, be right back here again for office hours next week. Same time, same place, 2 p.m. Eastern. So in the meantime, take care. Have a good weekend, and we'll see y'all next week.